All right, here we are. Let's read chapter 27. My kids, as I always say, are all around, but it's really nice outside. Can you tell by that sunshine? It's really nice outside. So all the kids are outside playing. So hopefully we stay outside playing at least long enough for me to finish this. Chapter 27. It hits the fan, yo. It's a little bit of a chunkier chapter. So buckle up, sit down, and let's do this. Chapter 27, Tuesday, January 1st. January 1, 2009. News for today is good and bad. There was an earthquake this morning, which means good news. Emma was right. But also bad news. Emma was right. Today is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Anyway, Cam and I are sitting in Mom's bed while she's on the phone trying to get a hold of Dad to let him know we're all right. Nothing much broke. There were a couple of dishes and a vase full of water and flowers that broke, but as a whole, we're fine. Just exhausted. Cam was curled up in a bundle of blankets next to Nikki. She set her journal and pen on her dad's nightstand before snuggling down next to Cam under their mom's plush white duvet. "Can I ask you something?" Cam asked. "I thought you were asleep," Nikki said. "No." "Sure, what's up?" Nikki yawned. It wasn't even 2 a.m, and she hadn't gone to bed until after midnight. Tired was an understatement. Cam didn't say anything for a while. He peeked over the mass of blankets to make sure Margaret was nowhere in sight. Then he took a deep breath and whispered, "Do you think magic makes earthquakes?" Nikki groaned. "Do I think there's some magical being in charge of making earthquakes? No. Earthquakes are just the earth's growing pains." She rolled onto her back. Cam sat up and looked at his sister. "Can magic stop earthquakes?" "Maybe," Nikki said. "You'd need some really powerful magic, though. I wouldn't try it. Not alone, anyway." "Why?" "If magic could stop an earthquake, could it stop a war?" Cam asked. Nikki sighed. She finally understood his train of thought. "I don't think so, kiddo." "Why not?" Cam asked. "Well," she thought about her answer for a little while. "For the sake of argument, let's say magic can stop an earthquake." Okay, so Nikki rubbed her eyes. Her lack of sleep was making her mind foggy and her logic unsound. "So magic can't stop wars because there are people involved. There are no people involved in an earthquake. People are affected by the earthquake, sure, but no one is choosing to have the earthquake. The only way to magically end a war would be to cast a massive spell on one side and make them agree with the viewpoints of the other side." Cam didn't say anything. "I said that out loud, right?" Nikki glanced at Cam. "Yeah," Cam mumbled, burying himself further in the sea of sheets and fancy pillows. "Good." Nikki's eyelids fluttered as her body relaxed. "What's even the point of magic if it can't bring Dad home?" Cam mumbled. Cam was the sort of kid who didn't want to bother anyone, so Nikki knew, despite her desire to sleep, this conversation needed to happen while the topic was open. The point of magic is to Nikki rubbed her eyes again. Her brain offered, the point of magic is to zap little brother so older sisters could get some sleep and rest enough to help stop giant tidal waves from wiping out the town. Nikki rolled over and looked Cam in the eyes and said, "The point of magic is to keep us safe while Dad isn't here to protect us." "Is that why you got magic and I didn't? Because you're older?" "I got magic because I turned 18. But can I tell you a secret?" Nikki asked, sitting up and looking around. "You have to promise not to tell Mom. Or at least don't tell her I told you." "Okay, I promise," Cam said, using his index finger to draw an invisible X across his heart. "So, Dad has magic, but Mom doesn't, right?" Cam nodded. "Well, you and I were both born with magic. When Mom found out, she asked Dad to bind our powers." "So I'll get powers too?" Nikki nodded. "I broke the binding when I turned 18 because I'm an adult now, and I have to make my own choices about magic. No one can make the choice for me." Wait, you can choose not to be magical? Yeah. Grandma Kate says a witch can choose to be stripped of her powers, but once her powers are gone, they're gone forever. Why would anyone choose that? Cam asked. Some people want normal lives, Nikki said, shrugging. Okay. I paused the video because my kids were coming in. I wasn't sure if somebody was screaming, but I think we're okay. I had to have a conversation about falcons, though, for a minute, so back to the book. Some people want normal lives, Nikki said, shrugging. Can I ask you a question? Sure, Cam said. Can we pick up this conversation later? I'm exhausted. Nikki collapsed on top of her brother. Get your fat butt off me first. Cam's yell was muffled by Nikki's stomach. January 1, 2009. I've decided I hate letters. I have so many questions, but no one to ask. I mean, I could ask Henry, but I don't exactly have an easy way of contacting him. My apparently alive mermaid grandma sent me a message, and I have no idea how to even process it. But I do have 5 billion questions. Being a mermaid is one thing, but these long-lost relatives, I don't know how much more I can take. Anyway, I sent a text to Nikki and Emma about meeting at the Cove in an hour. We had an earthquake this morning, which usually wouldn't make me think tidal wave, but let's say my mermaid senses are tingling. I still feel kind of bad about last night. Miss F called to ask if I wanted to come over and spend New Year's Eve with them, and I was, and still am, frankly, so freaking nervous about today that I told her I had already made plans with Joe. Joe asked if I wanted to go to a party with her, and I told her I was going to be with Wyatt and to stay away from the ocean. One thing that's nice about Joe knowing I'm a mermaid is that when she asked why, I just made a mermaid motion with my hand and she got the hint. Nellie looked at her watch and checked the time, 12:05. She got up and paced around her room for a little while, 12:06. Was time passing slower on purpose? Nellie shoved a pile of dirty laundry aside and sat on the floor and stretched. She hadn't felt this anxious since her first big surf competition. She had been 8 years old and the nervousness was eating through her. She kept snapping at Joe and her parents and would burst into tears over insignificant things which usually wouldn't have bothered her. Finally, Melinda had pulled her aside. She had told Joe to stretch and focus only on relaxing her muscles. Nellie had done so but was still jittery. Melinda told Nellie to imagine herself in the ocean. Nellie could still hear her mom's words. It's just you and the water. No board, no other people. Feel the water. Feel the currents. Feel the movement. Control your breathing. Let the water do the work. After that first surf competition, Nellie never had a problem with anxiety before a meet again. She didn't know it at the time, but that moment with Melinda had been Nellie's first and last time ever meditating. At least it was until yesterday. It can't hurt, Nellie thought aloud. Standing, Nellie closed her eyes and tried to picture herself in the ocean. Minus the tail, she decided. She could hear the crackling of the ocean around her. She imagined the current in the cove. Most days it flowed right to left. Nellie felt the current move her. She felt the ebb and flow of the ocean. She matched her exhale to the ebb, her inhale to the flow. After breathing quietly for a few minutes, Nellie opened her eyes. Residual anxiety moved through her, but it no longer made her want to crawl out of her skin. She glanced at the clock. It was 12:15. Nellie groaned and jumped around a little. Warm up the muscles, she said, doing a few lat slaps. She shook her head and muttered, What are you doing, Nels? You're going to get yourself killed. She threw on a sweatshirt, deciding to jog to the cove to burn some time and hopefully those last nerves still plaguing her. 1 January 2009. I keep seeing Nellie trying to hold a giant wall of water and failing. It's the same vision. Every time. It's a waking nightmare. I see it in my mind's eye constantly. What if I got it wrong? Am I supposed to witness the death of my friends? Was I meant to cause their death? Am I only seeing this because my job was to make it come to pass? I can't believe that. We're supposed to stop it. We have to stop it. Anything else is just cruel. I've never questioned my gift. I've always known I was a force for good. But what if I'm not? Not again, Emma said, her hand relaxing on her quill, spilling ink at the bottom of her page. The cold washed over her. Hold it, Nellie, someone screamed. I'm trying. It's too big. I can't control it. I'm not powerful enough. Nellie cried back. A giant wall of water threatened to crush her. She stood, legs apart and arms up, palms out, as though she were literally using her body to hold the water back. Nikki was at her side, grabbing one of Nellie's outstretched hands. Nikki began murmuring words. The wall of water crashed down on all of them. Emma! Rochelle held Emma's head. Emma, you've had a vision. You fell. Can you hear me? Emma's eyesight was still unfocused and swimming. Ugh. She tried to speak, but her throat burned. She rolled over, coughing up a quart of ocean water. Oh, Rochelle watched Emma suffer, unable to do anything more than hold her hair back. I think that's it, Emma said after a minute. Her throat felt raw and sore. She leaned against her bed, breathing heavily. Do you want something? Rochelle asked. Water, Emma said, surprised by her answer. I'm probably dehydrated. I'll be right back. Rochelle patted Emma's shoulder before she left. Emma's head swam and pounded, the pain crashing behind her eyes and breaking over her forehead. She was pretty sure she was going to faint. There was a small beep from behind her, even though it hurt. Emma turned her head to see what had made the noise. Her cell phone was on the floor just a foot away from her. It took more energy than it should have for her to get it. Breathing heavily and leaning on the bed again, Emma opened the phone. There was a text from Nellie. Meet me at the Cove in an hour. Snapping the phone shut, Emma breathed deeply. An hour. An hour was enough, wasn't it? Enough time to brave today? She'd been preparing for so long, and it seemed everything was going wrong. Here, Rochelle said, walking into the bedroom. She had a towel in one hand and a glass of water in the other. She threw the towel over the water on the floor and set the glass on the nightstand. I'm going to help you onto the bed, okay? Emma started to nod, but then said, okay, because speaking hurt less. Rochelle pulled Emma up, setting her on the bed before lifting her legs and sliding them onto the bed. As she handed Emma the glass of water, she asked, what did you see? Emma took a small sip. She put the glass to her forehead. The coolness helped her throbbing head. The same thing, Emma finally said. It's been the same thing. I haven't told anyone because it's nothing new. I watch us die. I see it over and over again. Her voice cracked. Wait, die? You've never seen this before, have you? Die, get crushed by the wave. It's the same thing. Always the same. Someone is always screaming at Nellie to hold the wave. She always tries. She always fails. Emma whimpered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Nikki tries to help, but even their combined power isn't enough. The wall of water falls on us all. I got them into this. It's my fault. Nikki is a massively powerful witch, Rochelle said, and Nellie is a mermaid. If there's anyone in the world that does not need to worry about water, it's her. Do they know they could die? Yes, Emma said. Nikki saw it. We've both told Nellie. Rochelle tucked a strand of Emma's hair behind her ear. Magic, however fun, however amazing, it's not a game. It comes with heavy responsibilities. Your friends know this. You know this. You knew going into this you might not be coming out. I've talked with Nikki, and even though I've only met Nellie briefly, I know they're both smart girls. I hope you all walk out of this fight unscathed, but Rochelle cleared her throat. But I'd be kidding myself if I thought that was the most likely scenario. I wish I had the gift. I wish I had any magical gift so I could at least lend my strength to you. Nellie wants to meet in an hour, Emma said. Rochelle took a sharp breath and smiled. Then you will meet her in an hour. I'm not usually one for modern medicine, but take a painkiller, finish your water, and rest as much as you can. I'll come back in about 45 minutes to check on you. Rochelle brushed some hair out of Emma's face, kissed her forehead, and left the room. She returned shortly with a small bottle of painkillers. Take 2. Okay, all the kids just came inside. So, we're just going to do our best. January 1, 2009, later. Finally got some sleep. My whole body aches. I got a text from Nellie a while ago. We're supposed to meet her at the Cove in an hour. I wanted to go alone, but Mom asked me to watch camps, and she has a bunch of work stuff that came up because of the earthquake. I called every mom-approved babysitter I could think of, even some she definitely would not approve of, and no one can take him. I even called Gabby, but her phone is off or dead, so he's with me. We're waiting for Emma. Hey, Emma carried her light blue jacket and a bottle of water. You look awful, Cam said as Emma got into the passenger seat. Cam, be nice. Nikki spun around to glare at him with a look that said, seriously? He is being nice, Emma said. She pulled the sun visor down and looked at herself in its little mirror. Awful is a huge understatement. What happened? Nikki asked, backing out of the driveway. Emma glanced at Cam. It's cool, Nikki said. He's known for a while now. I keep having the same vision over and over again. Remember the last vision we had? When I threw up water, Nikki grimaced. I can still taste the brine. She stopped at a light, drumming her fingers on the steering wheel. Well, this time I had the pleasure, Emma said, making a face. Yeesh. Nikki made a face. The light went green and Nikki turned left, taking them toward Main Street. Wait, Cam said suddenly. You have visions of the future? Who are you talking to, kid? Nikki asked. Both of you. Emma said the last vision we had. So unless she was speaking in the royal we, Cam trailed off. I don't have visions, Nikki said as she clicked on her blinker to get onto Main. At least not on my own. Emma needed help and I was drawn into the vision. But the last vision implies there were more, Cam said. I was having problems, Emma said. For a while, I couldn't get any visions to come at all. It was some kind of block. Nikki helped me, and that's when we had the first vision together. Then there were too many visions. I was having multiple in a row, sometimes all at the same time. Nikki helped again, and that's when we had the second one. There were only two. We're never going to make it to the cove on time, Nikki said, glancing at the clock. With this traffic, it's a parking lot. There's a spot by the knitting shop. Emma pointed to the right. We can walk from there. After the nightmare commonly called parallel parking, Nikki, Cam, and Emma piled out of the car. Where are your regular keys? Cam asked as Nikki pulled out a single key instead of her usual noisy keychain full of keys and knickknacks. Don't worry about it, Nikki said. Just people watch, okay? Let me know when it's clear. Nikki slipped her key into a hide-a-key magnetic pouch. Cam watched the crowds of people. Clear. Nikki slid under her car and carefully hid her key. She popped back up and stretched her arms in front of her, trying to look inconspicuous. Emma looked at Nikki in the back of the car. Nikki glanced at her. You know, in case of whoosh. She made a wave motion with her arm. Then I'll still have a way to drive the car, she shrugged. Good thinking, Emma said. The three of them walked past shops and delis. Cam ran up ahead of them to look in the window of the science store. Nikki kept an eye on his head bobbing through the crowd. Nikki? Emma said, grabbing her friend's arm. What? Nikki turned and found herself face to face with a wall of televisions. And now with the latest. Kim? The newsman said on the televisions. There was a brief pause and lag time as the newswoman listened to her colleague. Thanks, Dan, Kim said after a moment. We had a decent-sized earthquake this morning. As you can see behind me, some of the older buildings in town have collapsed. Friends and neighbors have flooded in to help in any way they can. She pointed behind her. This earthquake, Kim voiced over as the camera panned the crowds clearing debris, struck at around 1:30 this morning. Experts are rating it as at a 7 on the intensity scale. Luckily, most of the buildings in the area are up to more recent codes. All in all, not a great way to start out the new year. Back to you, Dan. We saw this, Nikki said, as Dan talked about all the numbers involved in the earthquake. It was different, but I remember this. Nikki couldn't pull her eyes from the televisions, even though she wasn't watching anymore. She put her hand on the glass. We saw this. At least we know why all the people are here, Emma said. We should find Cam. Does it always feel like this? Nikki asked as they walked toward the science store. You mean the weird pit in your stomach when you experience something for the second time, even though you never really experienced it in the first place? Emma asked. Nikki swallowed, her mouth suddenly very dry. Yeah, pretty much, Emma said. She breathed deeply to steady her racing heart. The girls moved through people, apologizing to every shoulder they bumped as they pressed forward. They found Cam staring at a Lego model of the Death Star twice his size. Ready, kiddo? Nikki put a hand on his shoulder. Yeah, he said. Most of the buildings on Main were standing. Just a few had crumbled walls. Nikki held onto a handful of Cam's t-shirt and steered him through the crowd of helpers and onlookers toward the apparent cliff edge. The girls glanced around to see if anyone was watching. After all, they had promised Nellie to keep the cove a secret. But everyone seemed more interested in things on Main Street. Where are we going? Cam asked once they were on the hike and away from the mass of people. Okay. We're going down there. Nikki pointed vaguely downwards. You're staying here. What? Cam said, no way. I promise I won't get in the way. You can't come, Nikki said. I should have given you $20 to stay at the science store. She murmured more to herself than Cam. I'm coming with you, Cam insisted. Everything in her told Nikki to make him stay here. But there was one little piece of her whispering. It was smarter to keep him close, to make sure they didn't get separated, that keeping him safe would be easier if he was within arm's reach. She decided this once to listen. Fine, she said, but you have to do exactly as I tell you. I will, Cam said. No, I'm serious, Cameron. Nikki got to eye level with him. If I say run, I say how fast, Cam said, rolling his eyes. I know. Not today. Nikki stared into his piercing blue eyes and put her hands on his shoulders. Today, if I say run, you run as fast as you can and you don't look back. Cam nodded, eyes wide. When the three of them got to the beach, they saw Nellie standing with Wyatt and Joe. Nikki could tell that they had walked in on the middle of some major drama. Wyatt caught sight of Nikki, Cam, and Emma. You told them how to get here? He practically yelled at Nellie. Not now. Nellie turned her attention back on Joe. I told you to stay away from the ocean. I didn't think you meant forever, said Joe. How about until further notice? Does that work for you? Just because you have superpowers doesn't make you the boss, Joe sneered, crossing her arms. Guys, Nellie said. Nellie and Joe stared at her. The determination in their eyes was identical, two forces ready for battle. We need you guys to get out of here. Nikki looked at Joe, Wyatt, and then Cam. Joe, take Cam with you. What? I don't have any cash on me now, but I can pay you $50 to take him as far away from here as you can. Have him back by. Nikki grabbed Nellie's wrist and checked the time. 6 should do it? She turned and glanced from Emma to Nellie. 6 should be plenty of time, right? Like this should be over by then, right? I don't know, Wyatt said. Who you even... Wyatt? Nellie stressed the first syllable in his name. Do as she's telling you, please. No, Wyatt said. We came here to surprise you, as in, hello, I'm still alive. Not that you apparently care anymore. I don't know why I wasted my time. Look, Nikki took a step toward him. I don't have time for your drama, Wyatt. You want to whine? Fine, but take my brother with you. Get up the hill and get out of here. Take my car if you need. Cam will show you where it is. Nikki, Cam said quietly. Wyatt scoffed. You can't be serious, he said to Nellie. You're really helping these freaks? Nellie flinched as though his last word had been a slap. Swallowing, she turned to Joe. Please, do this for me. Take Cam and go. Why can't you just tell us what's going on? Joe said, uncrossing her arms. We're trying, Emma practically shouted. Everyone looked at her. She took a deep breath and said as calmly as she could, there is a tidal wave on its way here right now. It should be here very soon. Nikki's worried about her brother and would like you guys to make sure he's safe. For now, please, let's be team players. For the sake of all of our lives, please listen to us. We know what we're talking about. Wyatt barked out a laugh. You guys ruined my best friend's lives, and I'm just supposed to trust you now? Be team players? Sure. Can you believe that earthquake? Wyatt said, making his voice lower. Then with a higher voice, he said, I know, talk about freaky. His attempt at impersonating Nellie would have been amusing if the circumstances were not so dire. Guys, Cam said. What's up? Nellie asked, glancing at him. Cam didn't say anything. He just pointed. Nellie followed his hand right to the ocean. Holy... The water had receded back to the rock to which she and Joe would race. It's coming. Any second now. That's when they heard the roar. Run! Wyatt grabbed Nellie's hand, pulling her away from the beach. No, go with Joe. Nellie yanked her hand from his and shoved Joe toward him. The two scrambled away as Nellie ran back toward the wall of water, now less than 100 feet from them. Cam, go! Run! Nikki shouted at him. The roaring water was deafening. Cam didn't move. Cam, go! Nikki screamed, running to her brother and pushing him after Wyatt and Joe, who were already quite a ways up the hike. Cam finally moved. He started to run, but he seemed unable to tear his eyes from the water. Hold it, Nellie! Emma screamed. Her breath caught in her chest as the familiarity of the word struck her. I'm trying. It's too big, Nellie screamed. No, Emma whispered to herself. No. I can't control it. I'm not powerful enough. Nellie shouted between grunts of exertion. She stood, bracing herself with her back leg. The weight of the wave pressed on her, literally pushing her through the sand. She readjusted her feet, trying for more grip. Emma! Nikki yelled, running to stand next to Nellie. Emma realized they'd never joined hands, all three of them in her vision. It was up to her. Perhaps death wasn't the only option. She ran next to the girls and grabbed Nikki's hand. The three of them united for the first time, and the effect was immediate. The loud roaring of the water stopped. All went silent. What happened? Nellie asked, starting to lower her hands as she looked around. No, don't, Emma warned, keeping her own hands up. Nellie raised her hands again, quickly. But the wave, it stopped. I can't feel it pushing me anymore. Have we? Did we stop time? Nikki asked, looking at a bird mid-flap above them. I don't... It's not... This is impossible, Emma said. I think it's wearing off, Nellie said. The water's starting to push back again. She dug her feet into the sand again. Emma, Nikki said, glancing at her brother, frozen in a frantic run. Make sure he makes it. Watch him. Go with him. Of course, Emma said, nodding. I don't know how long we'll be able to hold it, Nellie said, straining. Warn everyone. Get them to high ground. Hurry. Nellie grunted the last word. The rumble of the water grew. Letting go of the others, Emma raced after Cam, who was beginning to run, as though in slow motion. Then all at once, time pushed forward and the world moved again. The full weight of the giant wall of water pushed on Nikki and Nellie, hands still linked. Nikki squeezed her eyes shut, focused on the image of her power moving into Nellie, who felt it surge through her as the ocean thundered, outmatching them both. The two girls dug their feet into the sand, trying to find some way to ground themselves. We can't hold it, Nellie admitted, but I can give you a head start. Nikki could feel the energy of the wave. The energy from her magical waves had been light and yellow. This wave felt nothing like hers. It was fast and dense, deep maroon, violent and thirsty, larger than anything she had produced in their practice. But I'm a mermaid, Nellie grunted. It's not like I'm going to drown. Nikki nodded quickly and murmured a spell, the words spilling out of her before she thought about them. That should give you a little more time, Nikki said. See you soon? Yeah, Nellie hissed through gritted teeth. Go! The water pressed against her like a wall, like it had a will of its own, and its only desire was to crush her. The girls released hands, and Nikki ran as fast as she could, grateful she had worn sneakers. She felt an animalistic desperation overtake her body and senses. Completely ignoring the winding path that led back to civilization, Nikki scrambled straight up, with no regard for scratching trees and thorny plants. Hyper aware of her surroundings, Nikki heard a scuffling behind her. She chanced to glance back and was amazed to see Nellie clambering up. The two girls reached the top in record time. The parking lot was chaos. People were scrambling over each other, screaming as they tried to escape what could be a watery grave. Nikki looked at Nellie, wide-mouthed but unable to speak. Henry, Nellie yelled and answered at Nikki's unasked question. Nikki gave a quick nod to show her understanding. She turned sharply. Someone had called her name. Did you hear that? Nikki shouted at Nellie. It sounded like it came from over there, Nellie yelled, pointing to the shops. Shopkeepers had pulled out ladders and were helping people onto rooftops. It was no longer about getting away. Now it was just about not getting swept away. There wasn't any more time to run. Come on! Nikki grabbed Nellie's hand and led the way through the swarming crowd. She spotted Emma and Cam at the base of the science shop. Emma had also been scanning the crowd as she held the ladder which Cam was climbing up. She waved when she saw Nikki and Nellie. Emma looked wild-eyed at her friends as they raced toward her. How did you... Henry, Nellie said, panting. Get up and I'll tell you. Go first, Emma said to Nikki. Nikki crawled up the ladder and quickly found Cam's face among the others on the roof. She ran and hugged him. Oh, you're safe. How did you make it out of there? Cam asked. That was the biggest wave I've ever seen in my life. Nikki's uncle helped us, Nikki explained, but it's not over. The wave's still going to hit, okay? Hold on and we'll be fine. Nikki hugged her brother again. She closed her eyes and visualized her magic reinforcing the building upon which they stood, spreading like spider silk, golden and gleaming as it intertwined with the bones of the building, securing it to the surface of the earth. Nikki opened her eyes. Emma and Nellie had caught up. Emma was zipping off her jacket and laying it on the roof to sit down. Where are Wyatt and Joe? Nellie asked. I'm not sure, Emma said, shaking her head. I looked for them when we got up here, but... Emma gestured around her. While a good majority of the people were on rooftops, there were still screaming people running below. Nellie nodded. I'm sure they're fine. More people piled onto the flat roof of the science shop until there was a decent-sized crowd. The girls had just settled in when people around them started screaming and pointing. The girls turned and saw the water finally heading toward them. Hang on to something, Nellie yelled, grabbing onto some piping. The four had been pushed to one side of the roof. The wave hit, and the building groaned on impact. Nellie held tight to the piping. Nikki held Cam with one arm and the piping with the other. Emma held onto a bit of jutting concrete. Water sprayed them as it filled the street below them. There was a yap from a small dog. A woman chasing after the dog ran through Cam and Emma, stopping just before the edge of the building. The woman bumped Cam and Emma forward, knocking them both off balance as a second wave hit. All four went off the edge into the rushing water. No! Nikki screamed. She stood, but Nellie was already diving in. Nikki froze, tears streaming down her face. The sky cracked unexpectedly, and there was a sudden downpour, like the very earth was mourning the loss of Emma and Cam. Under the water, churning through roiling waves, Emma looked around. Her brain had not fully caught up to current events. She did not comprehend she had fallen in. What she did comprehend was the burning in her lungs. Everything around her was a wash of brown and sickly green. The longer she looked, the more she recognized a vision coming true. Emma looked for Cam. She saw him, looking up at her, eyes bulging and wide with fear. She reached out to him, but she was pulled away. Her vision tunneled as her lungs screamed for air. Later, she would recount how the last thing she saw was a flash of blue before everything faded to darkness. Henry, of course, had saved her. He had found her and brought her to the roof where Nikki was still standing and sobbing. "Take her," Henry called, handing Emma's body to Nikki. Without knowing, Nikki used a combination of willpower, adrenaline, and magic to lift her limp friend back to the roof. Henry came out of the water, transforming seamlessly. Between the torrential rain and commotion, no one on the roof had noticed his blue tail turn to tanned legs. Henry did a few chest compressions, but luckily Emma wasn't far gone enough to need much. She was throwing up water quickly, color flooding back into her face. "Cam," she said hoarse. "Nellie went down," Nikki croaked, turning her bloodshot eyes on Henry. "She went after him. There's also a woman and her dog. They all fell in." Henry didn't say a word. He turned around and dived back in. A few people screamed. Meanwhile, Nellie swam frantically in the churning water, dodging debris, fighting unruly currents, scanning for any signs of scanning for any sign of Emma or Cam. She had just dodged a car when Henry found her. "I got Emma," he had to shout to be heard over the crunching of metal on metal as cars were shoved into buildings and each other. "Cam?" Nellie shouted back. Henry shook his head. "Keep looking." They split up. Nellie fought her way through the brown water. It was thick and heavy with wreckage and junk. She had to battle for every inch. Even now, the ocean fought her. Anyone other than a mermaid would have drowned. She surfaced momentarily to gain her bearings, holding onto a stoplight to keep from being swept away. The sun peeked through the storm clouds, not enough to warm her, but enough to help her see through the din and spray. Her nose was assaulted by the briny smell of water. She could see the roof where Emma and Nikki waited. She swam over to them. A pain shot through her tail as she reached them, knowing what she had to say. "I can't find him. I've looked everywhere," Nellie confessed. Nikki threw up. "Wait," Emma took Nellie's hand. They both felt cold. Cam was floating lifelessly, a bit of rope tangled around his foot. "Was that a vision?" Nellie asked, pulling her hand back. Just take them and go. "Was that a vision?" Nellie asked, pulling her hand back. "A short one," Emma said. "Does it help?" I think I know where he is," Nellie said, diving back into the water. Nikki had collapsed into a sobbing heap. Emma knelt at the edge of the roof, looking around and watching the water. Each roof was now its own island. The water still rushed around, but it had stopped rising. After what seemed like ages, Nellie finally swam over. She carried someone in her arms. Emma's eyes pooled, blurring her eyesight as she reached into the water and pulled out the pale, lifeless body of her friend's little brother. Barefoot and half naked, Nellie got out of the water. Although her transformation wasn't as seamless as Henry's, no one had noticed her change either. All eyes were on Cam. The wind and rain had plastered Emma's hair to her face. She set Cam's limp body down and absent-mindedly handed her now soaked jacket to her friend. Nellie put it around her waist and zipped it up, creating a makeshift skirt. "I can save him," Nellie said, kneeling down. Emma put a hand on Nellie's hand. "No one?" "My grandma. She said I have the power to save. My instructions were save him. I thought she meant Wyatt, but..." Nellie put her hands on Cam's chest. "Who?" Emma asked. Nellie focused on Cam. She pictured his water-filled lungs. She lifted her hands slowly and magically pulled a bit of water out of his lungs. It wasn't enough. There was still too much water. Doubt crept up. Okay. Doubt crept up the back of Nellie's neck, but a science lesson that seemed ages ago rushed forward into her mind. Dihydrogen monoxide. Water. Oxygen. There was water. There was oxygen in water. Nellie focused on pulling hydrogen gas out of Cam, leaving fresh, clean oxygen in his lungs. But outwardly, Cam seemed unchanged. It just wasn't enough. Nellie abandoned magic and began CPR. Color slowly faded back into Cam as blood was shoved through his body, but he did not wake up. Nellie, Emma said gently, putting her hand on Nellie's shoulder. No! Nellie shoved her off and tilted Cam's head, pinching his nose. She blew a gentle breath into his lungs. Do the compressions. Nellie grabbed Emma and shoved her on top of Cam. Emma began half-hearted compressions. Like you mean it! Nellie snapped. Choking back tears, Emma pushed hard on Cam's chest. She pushed over and over again, cracking one of his ribs. Nellie waited until just before Emma had finished her compressions. She put a hand on Cam's forehead, not really knowing what she was doing. She moved by instinct. Her mother's words came back to her. Let the water do the work. Let the magic do the work, she whispered, as she touched her forehead to the side of his face. Nellie whispered, Jagander vandit af liv adig. Emma finished the compressions. Nellie breathed into Cam once more. She felt magic in this breath. Cam rose beneath her hands, hovering a few inches off the ground. A light blue glow cocooned him. Nellie felt her magic move through his body, repairing his broken rib, closing up scratches, healing bruises, and spreading life. Come on, Cam, Nellie whispered, watching his face. He took a deep and sudden breath. There was no coffee. There was no coughing. Nellie had rid his lungs of ocean water. He floated back down. Nicky? He croaked. Nicky scrambled over to him, sobbing as she pulled him into her arms. You did it, Emma said, sinking down in relief. Did you find him? Henry suddenly asked. Nellie and Emma turned around to see him bobbing in the water, holding on to the edge of the roof. I haven't. Henry looked sick. I've looked everywhere. I found that lady and her rat. He pointed with his thumb behind him. We found him, Nellie said. How is he? Henry asked, looking past them at Nicky, who clung to Cam, both crying silently. I think he's going to be okay, Nellie said. Have you seen Joe? No, Henry said, but I'll pop around to some of the other buildings and see if I can find her. Henry? Nellie said before he went underwater again. Yeah? Thanks, she said. Thanks for the training and for back there, for everything. She nodded. You saved us. You're welcome, he said with a small nod. He slipped below the water again. 1 January 2009. Something happened today. Something terrible and terrifying, but somehow necessary. Cam died, but only for a little while. I don't know if he's fully aware of what's happened. We were left in our hospital room alone, and we decided it was best if we didn't tell anyone about what happened to Cam. We promised to tell him more after we've all rested and been properly nourished. Something else happened, but the three of us haven't been alone to discuss it, and I don't dare write it. Not yet. Not until we know more. All 5 of them were crammed into a hospital room. Emma sat in a chair in a corner closest to the bed where Nicky and Cam sat, while Nellie, now wearing scrubs, snoozed on another bed. The girls had been prepared to lie and say they were family to be put in the same room, but the masses of people being admitted meant everyone was sharing rooms. Voices shouted outside their door, waking Nellie, who sat up, looking around. It's okay, Emma said. You can lie back down, Nels. No way, Nellie stretched. Next time I lay down, I'm doing it for real in my bed, and I'm not getting up for a year. She groaned as she rolled her neck. These pillows suck. 3 guesses who that is, Nicky said as one voice shouted loud enough for the 5 of them to decipher the words. Congratulations, Caitlin, you finally done it. Nicky's dead. Are you happy now? Mom, Cam sighed to Nicky. Don't be ridiculous, Margaret. Nicky is the most powerful being of her kind to ever exist. Do you honestly believe a little water will stand in her way? Grandma, Nicky guessed, glancing back at Cam. She is a child, Margaret shot back, throwing open the door. Margaret ran to her children, hugging them both. Margaret and Kate continued to bicker. Nellie squirmed, uncomfortable around the tension Margaret and Kate had built around them. But Emma noticed their voices were fading, quickly going from muffled to silent. She knew what was going to happen next. Emma was going to see herself, and she understood her message now. She mouthed as slowly and obviously as she could, "There is no time to explain. Keep him home. Keep Cam away from the water." She knew from memory the vision was over. She had tried to warn herself, and she knew she wouldn't be able to understand it anyway. Emma folded the piece of paper she had written on and stood, gesturing to Nellie to follow. When they got out of the room, Nellie leaned over. "Where to?" Emma nodded toward the nurse's desk. "Excuse me," she said to the nurse who was on the phone. When the nurse glanced up, Emma smiled and quickly said, "We're looking for Josephine Hanson and Wyatt Fletcher." The nurse jabbed her pen toward a large whiteboard. "Uh-huh. Yes, sir. No, I understand," she said onto the phone. "Thanks," Emma whispered. The girls scanned the board, leaning closer to read through the dry erase names all crammed together. "Here," Nellie said, pointing. "We're in 205. Wyatt's right across from our room." "Joe is a few doors down," Emma said. "I'll go see him. You go see her." "Come on," Nellie said, breaking into a jog. The girls dodged nurses and doctors, one of whom told them to slow down. They worked their way through the sterile hallway. Nellie kept jogging toward Joe's room as Emma ducked into Wyatt's. "Wyatt?" Emma whispered. Several people were in this room. A partition had been put up between them. The people pointed to the corner. Monitors beeped. Emma rounded the partition and saw several tubes and wires leading into a form laying under a thin, white hospital blanket. "Are you family?" a nurse asked, standing by. "Cousin," Emma lied. "How's he doing?" "He'll be okay." The nurse made a note on her clipboard. "Was he caught in the tidal wave?" "The girl he was brought in with said they both were, but someone dragged them out and put them on a roof with a woman and her dog. People are so incredible." The nurse hung the clipboard at the end of the table. "I'll give you two a moment alone." She squeezed Emma's shoulder as she left to check on the others. "Thanks," Emma said. She took Wyatt's hand, amazed by how warm it was. She whispered his name, softly squeezing his hand. When a tear fell on her hand, Emma realized she was crying. Could she have spared him from this? Could she have kept him safe? This was her fault somehow, she was sure of it. She wiped away her tears with her other hand. "He was under longer than I was," a voice said from behind Emma. Emma turned around. Joe was standing with Nellie. "Henry saved you two, didn't he?" Emma whispered. Joe nodded. "So much for deadbeat Henry, right?" She cracked a little smile at Nellie, but it wavered. "Turns out he's useful after all," Nellie said. "Does he know, rescued him?" "I don't think so," Joe said. "He came to pretty quickly after we got out of the water, but Henry was gone before I could say anything." "He came back and told me he found you, but he also said he had to go," Nellie said. "I would have asked him to find you guys sooner, but we were looking for Cam." "How is he?" Joe asked. But before anyone could answer, she started crying. "We should have done what you said," she choked out between sobs. "We should have taken him and run." Nellie hugged her. "He's okay," Emma said. "Here, sit." She let go of Wyatt and pulled up a chair for Joe. Joe sat, tears still streaming down her cheeks. "Everyone is going to be okay," Nellie said. "Like Dad says, no harm, no foul." "Oh my gosh, Dad, has anyone called him?" Joe said, alarmed and looking at Nellie. "You guys get back to Joe's room," Emma said. "If he comes looking for you, it'll be there. I'll ask a nurse if they've called Wyatt's mom. Nellie, I'll meet you back in the room later. If I don't see you, we'll talk tomorrow." Nellie then did something that surprised her as well as Emma. She hugged Emma and said thank you. After a stunned moment, Emma hugged back and nodded. Emma did as she said she would. She made sure someone called Wyatt's mom and the Hanson girl's dad, just in case. Then Emma took a walk around the hospital. Her massive visions made sense now. There were people crying and mourning the loss of loved ones, but there were also people crying as they celebrated reunited families. Thankfully, Emma did not see any limp children. One had been enough. The weight of Cam's body in her arms haunted her. She tried not to think about it. She knew she would have to face it sooner or later. She just preferred later. Emma circled around and made her way back to 205. Before she got to the room, she was met by Rochelle and Ethel. They hugged her. "You did it," Rochelle said, squeezing Emma tightly. Emma smiled as Rochelle let go. "You brave, brave girl." Ethel kissed Emma's forehead, holding her face between her hands. "I didn't do anything," Emma said. "Honest. It was Nikki and Nellie and Henry." "Henry?" Rochelle asked. "He's Nellie's uncle and possible mentor," Emma said. "I know who he is," Rochelle said. "I'm just surprised he was there." "So were we, but we couldn't have done it without him," Emma sighed. It was finally over. January 1st, 2009, much later. You're not going to believe this, but Henry found my journal in my car, which is still underwater. He got it and dried it out for me. I thought that was sweet, but also kind of unnecessary. I only have a few pages left in this thing anyway. He dropped it by the house, said he figured he'd bring it by since he wanted to check on Cam. He just left. So here's the update. We had the massive tidal wave. Massive is not an understatement. The three of us froze time, but for like a second. I don't think it actually affected anything. Nellie and I tried to stop the tidal wave. We couldn't. Henry could. Well, he could long enough for us to get away. Cam died, but is not dead. Nellie used some kind of mermaid magic to bring him back. I was completely useless when I thought he was gone. We're finally home. We're all meeting tomorrow. At Madame Ortega's, of course, to go over what happened, and then Nellie, Cam, and I are meeting separately to go over what really happened. We decided it's best not to tell anyone about Cam or freezing time until we understand more about what happened. I think we should ask Henry about Cam since he knows more about mermaid magic, but I haven't brought it up to anyone else yet. Are you busy? Cam asked, poking his head in Nikki's room. Just finishing up. Nikki said, what's up? I just wanted to say thanks, Cam said, coming into the room and sitting at the foot of Nikki's bed. Thanks for saving me, he added in a whisper. As much as I'd love to take credit for that, it was Nellie who saved you, Nikki whispered back and squeezed his hand. We're talking about it tomorrow, right? Nikki nodded. We're having 2 meetings, one with the adults and one with those of us who were actually there. So, Cam said, no telling what really happened. Not all of it, Nikki said, shaking her head. What are you two whispering about in here? Margaret came into Nikki's room carrying a tray with 3 steaming mugs of hot chocolate and a little bowl filled with mini marshmallows. The usual, Nikki said nonchalantly. Dinosaurs and starships, Cam said, smiling. You two have been giving me that answer for years, Margaret said. She put the tray down on the bed. She stared at the floor for a second. Her lip quivered as pooled tears broke down her cheeks. I almost lost you two today, she managed to say. But you didn't lose us, Cam said, standing. We're right here. He hugged her. You're right, Margaret said, squeezing him. But with all the close calls, the bonfire, now this. She took a deep breath. I don't like magic. I never have. But if there's one thing you've shown me, Nikki, Margaret said as she took her daughter by the hand, you can handle yourself. I've always known you were strong and resourceful. You're like your dad in that way. She smiled. If I had it my way, but it doesn't matter. My point is I trust you. You can choose for yourself. And if you want to continue with magic and learn from Caitlin, then that's fine with me. Nikki hardly dared to believe what she was hearing. Mom, are you? Margaret pulled Nikki close to her so she held one child in each arm. I haven't spent enough time with you two lately, and I was reminded today that you are my most important work. There'll always be more houses to sell, but her chin trembled as she whimpered. Margaret gasped and held her breath for a moment. I can't afford to lose any more time with you. Can you tell as a mom that part gets me? Ugh. I feel like it's good writing when you're the one who wrote it and it still makes you like get all teary. I feel like that's good. I feel like that's a good sign. Or maybe I'm just a sap, which is also true. Okay, so that is the end of chapter 27. Chapter 28 will be put up next week. I'm going to show you a little sneak peek because I've been planning some fun things. I've been planning videos of what is going to go on and how I want to do like seasons, which again, I will talk about more in a later video, but I just want to give you like an itty bitty sneak peek of some of the things that I want to be doing. I'm excited about it. We'll see how it goes. So that's chapter 27 in the books, and I'll see you next week for chapter 28.